Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 3 of Strategic Planning and Leadership. Um, Thank you, everyone, for getting signed up for discussion leaders and for all of the one-on-one conferences last week. So I really enjoyed having the opportunity to chat with each of you individually. So as we move into week 3, we start to pick up a little bit of momentum. This week we have readings from chapters 1, 2, and 3 from Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. This week will also be our first online discussion, so that will take place in Moodle. Those discussions are covering both week 2 and week 3 readings. So we have our pioneers as discussion leaders, Jasmine Taylor, Katie Wilkins, and Amy Unsworth. So thank you for signing up for this first attempt at our conversations. Um, just a reminder of kind of the expectations on the discussions. As the leaders, you're expected to create a board and basically manage that board throughout the week. Um, the idea is to get a challenge question that relates to the readings posted by the end of the day on Monday. And then follow up throughout the week with pushing for additional questions and keeping the conversation going. If you are not a discussion leader, the expectation is that you respond to at least 2 of those 3 challenge questions. And again, my hope is that you create a thoughtful response to the initial question and then continue to check back into those discussions another 1 or 2 or 3 times during the week and add to that. So hopefully that'll work. We will adjust along the way if we need to, but I look forward to engaging with all of you in starting to talk about the content of the course. So this week, the first 3 chapters from Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. What I thought I would do is pull out 1 or 2 concepts from each of these chapters, comment on them, maybe pose some questions for you to think about. As you read this week, I really encourage you to think about how some of the ideas that Richard Rummelt presents in his writing, how those connect with your experiences with organizations, and then also think about how they will connect to your project as you're thinking about the design of a strategic plan that's coming up. So let's talk a little bit about chapter 1. Good strategy is unexpected. I pulled out this quote from the first chapter. The most basic idea of strategy is the application of strength against weakness, or if you prefer, strength applied to the most promising opportunity. One of the reasons I was drawn to this concept is that the University of Montana's relatively new president, Seth Bodnar, when he came in January, this was a concept that I heard him say on many occasions. Interestingly, if you don't know about President Bodnar, he comes to the university not from an academic background, but first from a military leadership background. And then after that, he was in a corporate leadership position with General Electric. And so, Rummelt uses a lot of military and business examples in his writing. So, think about this concept as you go through preparing for your project. How might you leverage this idea of applying strengths to opportunities as you design a strategic process? And one other thing I thought I would include from chapter 1 from Rummelt is this idea of sources of strength in an organization. So one of the things you will do with your organizations is you will assess what their strengths and their weaknesses are. Hopefully all organizations have multiple strengths. But one of the things that Rummelt talks about is that actually having a coherent strategy can be an additional strength for an organization. Strategy itself can be a strategic asset. He also says that you can create a new strengths within an organization in part by helping the organization shift its viewpoint. And so, to me, this is one of the exciting things about working with an organization in their strategy and in facilitation of their strategic thinking is that you're really helping leaders think about, I guess really see their organization through a new frame and think about opportunities through that new framework. And then one other thing I wanted to mention from chapter 1 is this concept that organizations tend to spread rather than concentrate resources. I think it's a natural tendency in organizations to do this. I know in my long history with the University of Montana, this is clearly an issue that we deal with. Being part of the university's strategic planning process a couple of years ago, a lot of people we talked to expressed a concern that the university's mission was too broad, that we were trying to do too many things. We were trying to be all things to all people. But it's really a very difficult leadership challenge, I think, to reverse that trend and not to spread out and try to do all things. It's a natural tendency for leaders, especially, to think that we can do everything and we can do it well. So think about why this happens in organizations. What are the consequences when you allow an organization to get spread too thin as opposed to focusing on some core strategic objectives? And then think about what role leadership plays in this dynamic and how leaders can overcome this tendency. Chapter 2 is titled Discovering Power. One of the things I thought was interesting about this was this line that our preconceived ideas of strength and weakness may be unsound. A key to designing and facilitating effective strategic planning processes is making sure that you start with a deep and honest assessment of an organization's strengths and weaknesses internally, and also the opportunities and threats that may be present external to the organization. It's natural also for ideas about your organization to become ingrained. We tell stories about the organization and the why it is the way it is, and those are great. I mean, they're helpful for people having a common understanding and building culture. But we also have to recognize that over time, circumstances change, people within the organization change. So we have to assess whether those stories are still an accurate view of what the organization is. So again, think about how in your process design and facilitation, you might help the organization you're working with see themselves with fresh eyes and question their notions about what their own strengths and weaknesses may be. And then I think this was an important concept from chapter 2 as well, that power comes from strategies, policies, and actions that complement one another. I think I've said this before, that strategy itself, without the execution, without the alignment among people who are actually implementing that strategy, is actually detrimental to an organization. It creates frustration, it creates cynicism, and so again, the leader's job is not just to create the strategy, but also to create the path to executing that strategy effectively. And then the third chapter that was assigned for this week, bad strategy. The author talks about 4 different ways that you can identify that a strategy is bad. And so just a quick review of those. The first one he talks about is fluff. So if you're reading a strategic plan within an organization, this is about the language that is used. There's a lot of abstract buzzwords. If there's unnecessary complexity, often you can assume that that is really designed to mask a lack of substance in that strategy. Second hallmark of bad strategy that he talks about is a failure to face the challenge. And so, as he says, if you fail to identify and analyze the obstacles, you don't have a strategy. You have a stretch goal, a budget, or a list of things you wish would happen. The third sign of a bad strategy is mistaking goals for strategy. This really is related to I think number 2, that you're really failing to think about what the real challenges are and how you would overcome those. And it's if you have a strategy that is based on goals, it's great to push your organization to aim high, push people to work hard. But I like this quote from the chapter that Rummold says, quote, "Motivation is an essential part of life and success, and a leader may justly ask for one last push. But the leader's job is more than that. The job of the leader is also to create the conditions that will make that push effective, to have a strategy worthy of the effort called upon." And then finally, the fourth hallmark of bad strategy that he talks about is bad strategic objectives. And really the two most common ones that he talks about are having a laundry list of objectives, dozens, maybe hundreds of things that you are trying to accomplish without a real lack of coherence and focus among those. And then the other problem that leaders often create with their strategy is creating objectives that simply aren't obtainable by the organization. So those are some quick highlights of the 3 chapters that you'll be reading for this week. And again, I look forward to the discussions online this week. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. But have a great week, and we will talk soon. Thank you.